Hello from your local friendly therapist. Today I wanted to answer a question that I received yesterday, which is, can a trauma or event happen to a person and they not even remember it or bring it up in therapy? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. We see this phenomenon in therapy, although not remembering an event whatsoever is a little less common. We definitely see different versions of how people may not remember an event or a trauma, or how they didn't necessarily maybe see it as a trauma until they really fully process it with more of a developed or adult brain. So, the one that we see less commonly is typically if somebody had a trauma happen to them and it was a little too much for their nervous system at the time, they may not remember it whatsoever. They may not remember the events. They may not remember they don't have that memory of it happening, and it's an interesting phenomenon where, they may not remember it here, but we see that often their body will still remember it, or they might remember smells from it or certain sounds, but they don't actually remember like the picture or the image of it. And again, this happens if our nervous system was kind of in overload. So you could think about a car accident and shock. Like that's a good example of something that might have been a little too much trauma for us in the moment. And so our brain will protectively shut off or, put that memory in a different area so that it's not really stored and we don't really remember those events. And again, our brain and body does that, trying to protect us. The other thing that we see is often people can have childhood trauma that at the time, again with a kiddo brain, they didn't really identify as trauma or know impacted the way that they saw the world. And so this is what I commonly see, which is, it could be the things that were said or not said to a kiddo that formed the way they view the world now. Or in a more extreme example, we'll see this sometimes with childhood sexual abuse, where if a person had childhood sexual abuse, it wasn't until later that they really connected the dots and realized this is abuse. And the way their brain has to process it once it connects those dots can make that a very painful and complex experience once they're a teenager and adult and they kind of come to terms with what really happened to them as a kid. The last thing that we'll see, which is really interesting, is how the body will usually keep the score, so to speak, and show us traumas that, again, maybe our brain is not connecting the dots on, or maybe our brain doesn't remember whatsoever. And so sometimes we have traumas happen to us in our lives, but our body remembers, our sense of smell remembers, or our ears remember, or we get some sort of feeling, or we manifest it in headaches, digestive issues, back pain, chronic pain, and other autoimmune issues. Sometimes these things are directly correlated to traumas in our lives or the accumulation of these small chronic traumas. And so I think that's the other way that maybe somebody isn't verbally talking about their trauma or sharing or connecting the dots about different events that happened to them, but we see how it manifests in other ways, which is why it's so important to find a person or a therapist that's able to tap into communicating with you and your trauma where you're at, because different types of therapy are going to tap into people's traumas in different ways and help them heal, help them gain that awareness, help them connect those dots. I hope you guys enjoyed the content of today. I know it's a little bit deeper, but I did want to talk about how we see this in therapy and that it is absolutely a reality. In fact, most of my clients do have some trauma in that second category where, again, as a kiddo, maybe they didn't see it as trauma, but now that they're adults and they're rewriting stories, they understand that that event was actually traumatic. I hope you guys have a good day. Be well, do some belly breathing, and I will see you next time.